Once, the Lord of Light banished dark and all that stemmed from humanity. And men assumed a fleeting form. These are the roots of our world. Men are props in the stage of life, and no matter how tender, how exquisite, the lie will remain a lie.
Now, it's because of this dialogue from Aldia, the scholar of the First Sin, that most believe that the First Sin was a product of Gwyn's desperation to prolong his Age of Fire, be it the undead curse, the linking of the fire, or perhaps them being one and the same. Time is indeed convoluted, but I'd wager there were two other far more grievous sins before the undead curse or the linking of the fire. But of course, sin, like most things, is subjective. Hey there, and I hope you're well. I'm Jake the Ashen Hollow, and in this video I'll be talking about what I believe the first sin actually was. But first, if you enjoy Dark Souls lore and look forward to more of it, be sure to click on the subscribe button and the bell icon for notifications. And of course, follow me on Twitter for sneak peeks and lame tweets. My frontrunner for the first sin would be the events of Izalith, or more specifically the witch's attempt to recreate the first flame. To start gathering my evidence for this, we first need to take a trip over to Drangleic. In the depths of the Lost Bastille is Sinner's Rise, and imprisoned within is a being called the Lost Sinner. Her soul reads, "The lost sinner eternally punishes herself for the sins of her past." Now, ordinarily this would be an easily ignored find, at least in the context we're exploring. But what's cool about Dark Souls 2, as I'm sure most of you know, is that during New Game Plus you can acquire the recycled Lord Souls of Gwyn, Seath, Nito, and the Witch of Izalith from certain bosses. And as it happens, you receive the Witch of Izalith's soul from the Lost Sinner. Then of course there's the Chaos Bug that crawls within the Sinner's eye before the fight, and the Pyromancers that fight alongside her, slinging Chaos Pyromancies as well as Pyromancies developed in Aldean rites. Now, I'm not suggesting that the Lost Sinner is the Witch of Izalith still paying her penance all these millennia later. It could or could not be, but what's important is that she is no doubt symbolic of the Witch of Izalith, through the Pyromancers, the Chaos Bug, and of course the Sin. The reason I mentioned that the Pyromancies created in Aldean rites is because of course Aldia is important to knowing what the first sin is. And for quick reference, Aldia is both a place and a person. It's not clear whether Aldia, the scholar of the first sin, was named after this place or vice versa, but it seems clear that he sat at the head of whatever hierarchy they had, as their item descriptions mostly mention Lord Aldia and how they were going about conducting very messed up experiments, which we know Aldia was no stranger to. Aldia acquired much knowledge during his various stints of research, and some of that knowledge was and has to be about chaos, its history, and all that comes with it. The Witch of Izalith was the mother of pyromancy, and all things pyromancy lead back to Izalith. And the fact that Aldeans have created their own is likely owed to Aldia's research of her. Take for example the description of the Bone Shield. It reads, "Shield used by Aldean acolytes, crafted from the skull of some creature that outlived its usefulness for experimentation." So they began to craft equipment out of the bones or skulls of creatures that they experimented on. With that in mind, look at the similarity of the Aldean warlocks' masks and the cleric demons from the Demon Ruins, which implies that they even experimented on chaos demons, not to mention that Aldia himself is bathed in fire. Now, that could be because of his connection to the bonfire, or that he became a corporeal form of the flame itself, but that's actually a planned rabbit trail for a different video. But Aldia does cast flame sorceries, which predates even pyromancy, as we see him casting what looks to be some sort of flame version of homing soul mass. The Izalith staff description from Dark Souls 3 reads, "Ancient catalyst of the Witch of Izalith and her daughters, used long before the dawn of chaos and pyromancy. With the birth of the chaos flame, the flame witches were at once both sorcerers and shamans. And as far as I know, they were the only ones to practice actual flame sorcery, as the witch's lord soul was the life soul, and the source of life was fire, and we know sorceries are the power of the soul. So Aldia being able to cast flame sorceries isn't coincidental, especially considering that the Lost Sinner holds onto the witch's recycled soul. We know that the Lost Bastille predates Vendrick's reign, but we know that he had to employ its use especially after the undead curse broke out, as it's guarded by the ruined sentinels, which are said to be a soul that haunts the armor they inhabit. Which isn't surprising given the research both Vendrick and Aldia put into the manipulation of souls while trying to find a cure to undeath. Aldia, I believe, very much studied the witch's soul and learned of her legacy as well as her sins. In fact, it appears that he studied Izalith in as much extent as he did the ancient dragons, and being the scholar of the first sin, that seems rather relevant. Also, take for example all the references of Izalith and its sin. And come to think of it, there's hardly any references of any specific sins in the game besides the event of Izalith, which is even less ambiguous than the goddess of sin herself. The Lost Sinner is symbolic to the sins of Izalith in every way, even to the weapon mechanics when using her sword, as it eats away at your health just like the Chaos Blade. The floating Chaos Pyromancy from Dark Souls 3 states, "Chaos burns away in the blink of an eye, but was the primordial life born in the bed of chaos, and a grievous symbol of Izalith's sin." It's the only constant of sin we see in the game, referenced time and again to the witch's failed attempt at recreating the first flame. The description even references it as the primordial life born in the bed of chaos. Now, primordial typically means existing since the beginning of time, but in this case it could mean since the beginning of their time, i.e. the beginning of fire. All that evidence points me to believe that the chaos of Izalith was the first sin, not Gwyn linking the fire or cursing humanity, though obviously I'd likely consider those sins as well, just not the first. But if the events of Izalith weren't the first sin, I still don't believe it was what Gwyn did at the decline of his Age of Fire. If anything, it was what he did towards the beginning. The small Envoy banner reads, "The small banner used by envoys of Great Lord Gwyn in the days of yore. For the pygmies who took the Dark Soul, the Great Lord gifted the Ringed City, an isolated place at World's End, and his beloved youngest daughter, promising her that he would come for her when the day came. Gwyn did that before linking the fire or cursing humanity. If the Witch of Izalith didn't commit the first sin, then straight up it has to be giving your f***ing daughter away to your enemies. What the f***? I mean, come on. Maybe it wasn't that specific, but maybe it was what Filianor was even there for. To sleep and hide the truth from the rest of the world. I don't know. Those are my top two for the first sin. Gwyn a motherfucker, though. I don't know. Roll the end card.